The first time Detective Ryan Callahan heard the call come through, he thought it was just another missing kid report that would resolve itself within the hour. In a city where kids sometimes wander a block too far or skip curfew to linger at the park, most of these calls ended with a sheepish teenager being dragged home. But something about the dispatcher's voice froze him in place. 7-year-old female, blonde hair, pink backpack, last seen walking home from Jefferson Elementary. Time lapse, 40 minutes. 40 minutes was already too long. Ryan's hand tightened on the wheel as the police SUV roared through an intersection, sirens slicing the air. Next to him in the back compartment, Valor stirred at the change in speed. The German shepherd shifted his scarred body, eyes gleaming in the flashing red and blue light. Those scars, long pale ridges running across his shoulder and down his flank, were badges from years of service. A pipe bomb in a meth house. A suspect with a box cutter who'd slashed in desperation. Every time, Valor had walked out alive, sometimes barely, but always ready for the next call. This time felt different. Ryan pulled onto Chestnut Avenue, where neighbors had already spilled onto the sidewalks. Porch lights flickered on though the sun hadn't fully set. Parents clutched their children closer. A mother with shaking hands pointed toward the narrow strip of woods that bordered the playground. She always waves to Mr. Larkin on the porch. She never came out the other side. Ryan's boots hit the pavement hard. Valor barked once, short and sharp, demanding release. Ryan unclipped the leash and gave the command. Find. The shepherd lowered his nose instantly, tail stiff, body tense like a coiled spring. He trotted forward, weaving across the sidewalk, then lunged toward the playground fence. Ryan followed, heart hammering. He'd learned to trust Valor's instincts more than his own. Dogs didn't second-guess. The playground was eerily quiet now, only the swings creaking in the breeze. Valor circled the sandbox, snuffling the edges. Then he froze, nose pressing into the dirt where a small sneaker print was pressed beside a larger, heavier boot. Ryan knelt, tracing the indent with a gloved hand. "Good boy," he whispered, his throat tightening. The scent trail pulled them past the swings, through the chain-link gap in the fence, and into the woods. The trees swallowed them quickly, shadows lengthening across brittle leaves. Ryan kept his flashlight steady, beams slicing left and right. He knew predators often chose routes that swallowed sound, and here every step felt muffled, like the forest was complicit. Valor's growl rumbled low, vibrating in his chest. He dragged Ryan deeper until woods opened into a clearing where weeds bent under the weight of forgotten machinery. Rusted scaffolding tilted like broken bones. A faded sign read, "Future site of Pine Ridge condominiums." The project had been abandoned years ago after the developer went bankrupt. Locals said the place was cursed. Rats, addicts, sometimes worse. Ryan cursed under his breath. This was no place for a child. Valor pulled harder, nose to the dirt, then to a slab of cracked concrete near a collapsed fence. He pawed at it until his nails screeched against metal. Ryan crouched. At first it looked like nothing, just old graffiti scrawled in chalk. But shining the beam closer, he saw faint stick figures scratched into the surface. Some had X's where the eyes should be. His stomach turned. Jesus! The dog whined, pawing again. Ryan pressed his shoulder against the slab and felt it shift ever so slightly. Behind it, the smell hit him. Damp earth, mildew, something sour. A hidden entrance. The radio crackled on his shoulder. Unit 7 status? Ryan hesitated, eyes locked on Valor's rigid posture. Reporting too soon might spook whoever was down there. Unit 7. Continuing search. Stand by. He slipped his flashlight between his teeth and heaved. The concrete moved just enough to reveal a dark gap. Valor plunged his nose inside, snarling. The hair on Ryan's arms rose. "Easy, boy, we go together." Sliding through, he landed on cool dirt. The air was heavy, filled with the stench of old metal and mold. His light swept across rusted beams and water dripping from overhead pipes. Somewhere in the distance, a sound echoed, soft, broken. Like a sob, Ryan's chest constricted. He wanted to run toward it, but training held him back. He scanned corners, every step deliberate, While Valor moved ahead, ears pricked. The shepherd paused a pile of debris. Food wrappers, crushed soda cans, a plastic doll missing one eye. Beside it, a child's pink shoelace. Ryan clenched his jaw. This wasn't just a hiding place. It had been lived in. Valor stiffened, nose twitching, tail raised high. He pushed forward, claws scraping dirt, until they reached a rusted door half buried in rubble. Ryan pressed an ear to it. Faintly, so faintly, he thought he heard breathing. He motioned Valor back, drawing his sidearm, pulse racing. A quick push on the handle. It didn't budge. Locked. He whispered into the radio. Possible containment. Need backup. Pine Ridge site, underground level. Static swallowed the reply. Damn it! Valor barked once, the sound booming in the tight space. Then, from behind the door, a muffled cry answered. Ryan's blood ran cold. It's her. He shoved the door again, harder this time, until the frame rattled. Valor launched his weight against it, slamming with his scarred shoulder again and again. Each hit reverberated like thunder. On the third strike, the lock gave way, metal screeching as the door flew open. The flashlight beam caught the small figure first. Knees pulled her chest, arms wrapped tight. Blonde hair tangled. Pink backpack tossed beside her. Maddie Whitmore. Her wide eyes blinked against the sudden light, then locked on Valor. The child gasped. Doggy? Before Ryan could speak, Valor moved gently, lowering his head, tail wagging slow and cautious. Maddie reached out with trembling fingers, brushing his fur as though testing if he was real. Ryan holstered his weapon and dropped to his knees. You're safe now, sweetheart. We're here. But before relief could settle, another sound cut through the silence. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, echoing from deeper in the tunnels. Ryan's body went rigid. Maddie's eyes widened with fear. Valor's growl rolled like thunder, deep in warning. Someone else was here. Ryan lifted his gun again, angling the flashlight down the dark corridor. The beam revealed only dripping pipes and concrete walls stretching into black. But the footsteps were real, each one closer than the last. He pulled Maddie close with one arm, pistol steady in the other. Valor stood at his side. Every scar a reminder of battles fought, every breath promising he'd fight this one too. And in that moment, Ryan knew this wasn't simple kidnapping. It was something bigger, something uglier, and they were standing in the middle of it. The sound stopped. Silence pressed in. Then, from the darkness, a voice. Low, mocking. You shouldn't have come here, detective. Valor lunged forward, barking so fiercely it rattled the walls. Maddie clung tighter. Ryan's finger brushed the trigger. The hunt had only just begun. Ryan's finger tightened on the trigger, his body locked in a half-second of silence that followed the taunting voice. Valor's growl reverberated through the narrow tunnel. Every muscle in the shepherd's body coiled like a spring ready to launch. Maddie buried her face against Ryan's shoulder, trembling so hard he could feel it through his vest. He didn't blink, not when he knew the slightest hesitation could mean all three of them ended up as bodies in this godforsaken place. Show yourself, Ryan called, voice flat and steady, though adrenaline tore through his veins. The only answer was laughter, low and scraping against the walls. Then the footsteps retreated, fading back into the dark corridors. Whoever it was, they weren't running, they were leading. Ryan cursed under his breath. He holstered his weapon just long enough to radio in, Unit 7, I've located the child, but we have a hostile presence on site. I need backup now at Pine Ridge Construction, underground level. Static hissed. Then nothing. Signal interference. Deliberate, or just a thickness of concrete and rebar pressing down around them. He looked at Maddie. Her tear-streaked face was illuminated by the weak flashlight beam. We're getting you out of here, okay? She nodded, gripping Valor's fur with both hands like it was the only rope keeping her from drowning. Ryan guided them back toward the exit, moving carefully, flashlight in one hand, pistol in the other. Every corner felt like a trap, every shadow like it could move. Valor paced ahead, nose working furiously, tail stiff with alertness. They reached the rusted door they'd broken open minutes earlier. Ryan pulled Maddie through, heart pounding with the thought of fresh air, just a few yards away. But as they stepped into the larger chamber, something caught his eye. On the far wall, half hidden under spray-painted graffiti, were more chalk drawings, not playful doodles, not a child's hand. These were deliberate, almost ritualistic. Stick figures arranged in rows, one larger shape looming above them, a circle drawn around it. Underneath, in smudged chalk, was a single word: wait. Ryan's gut tightened. He didn't know if it was meant as a command to the kids who'd been trapped here, or a message for someone else entirely. Either way, it wasn't random. Valor barked sharply, yanking Ryan back to the moment. The shepherd's nose was pressed to the ground near a broken pipe. Blood. A small trail, still tacky under the flashlight beam. Not Maddie's. Someone else had been hurt here. "Come on," Ryan muttered, ushering Maddie closer to his side. "We move." They emerged into the night air at last. The sky had gone indigo, with streetlights flickering to life in the distance. Ryan sucked in a lungful of cool air, but it didn't ease the tension grinding at his spine. He wanted to hand Maddie off to uniformed officers, wrap her in a blanket, call her father, but there was no backup, no sirens, no patrol cars waiting. The street beyond the construction site was empty, too empty. "Daddy," Maddie whispered, voice cracked. "I want my daddy." Ryan bent to meet her eyes. "You will, I promise. But first we have to keep moving." Valor's ears twitched. He spun, nose to the wind, body rigid. Then Ryan heard it too, a vehicle engine idling somewhere close, the sound bouncing against the hollow shells of unfinished buildings. Someone was still here, watching. Ryan crouched, pulling Maddie close. "Listen to me. I need you to stay quiet. No matter what you hear, you don't make a sound." Her lips quivered, but she nodded. Valor pressed against her leg, his scarred body a wall of warmth and protection. Ryan crept toward the edge of the site, peering past twisted scaffolding. Headlights flickered through a gap in the concrete barriers. An old van, paint peeling, its engine growling low. And then, without warning, the van door slammed shut. Footsteps pounded the gravel. Ryan spun, pistol raised. Valor leapt forward with savage bark, teeth bared, but there was no target, just the sound of retreating boots. Whoever had been there was gone, melting into the night. The van engine roared, tires spitting gravel as it sped away. Ryan's pulse thundered. They weren't dealing with a lone kidnapper. This was organized, planned. Maddie's grip on Valor tightened until her knuckles went white. "They said more kids were coming," she whispered suddenly, her voice thin as glass. Ryan's head snapped toward her. "What do you mean?" She looked down, twisting her fingers into Valor's fur. "He said I wasn't the only one. He said they'd bring more soon." A cold shiver crawled down Ryan's back. Before he could press further, the radio on his shoulder crackled to life at last. "Unit 7, this is dispatch. Do you copy?" Relief flooded him. "Copy. I have the child." Suspect fled in a white panel van, no plates. Request immediate perimeter lockdown and medical for the K-9. There was a pause. Then, "Unit 7 be advised. You're not the only one reporting. 2 more kids just went missing across town." Ryan froze. Maddie's words echoed in his head. They said more kids were coming. Valor whined softly, nudging Ryan's leg as if sensing the storm gathering. The shepherd's scars glistened in the dim light, a reminder of every battle fought, every wound survived. But this wasn't just another rescue. It was the start of something bigger, and Valor knew it. Ryan wrapped an arm tighter around Maddie, eyes scanning the darkness where the van had disappeared. "We're not done," he muttered under his breath. Valor barked once, sharp and decisive. The hunt had widened, and for the first time that night, Ryan realized he might be chasing something far more dangerous than a single predator. This was a network, a web, and they'd only just touched the edge of it. The convoy of police cars finally arrived 20 minutes too late. By then, Ryan had already moved Maddie to the edge of the construction site, crouched low behind a broken concrete wall, with Valor pressed against him like a shield. The girl's small body shook with silent sobs, but she clung to the German shepherd as though his scarred frame was the only thing tethering her to safety. When the first squad car spotlight swept across the weeds and rubble, Ryan exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Still, his jaw stayed clenched. Relief wasn't something he trusted anymore. "Detective Callahan!" An officer shouted, jogging toward them. "Medical's on standby." "Is she—" "She's alive." Ryan cut him off, his tone clipped. Garrett checked immediately. "Keep her father informed." Maddie didn't let go. Not of Valor. Not until Ryan crouched down and promised. "He's coming with you. Just to the car, okay?" Only then did she allow the officers to lift her gently, Valor walking beside her like a grim, battle-worn guardian. Ryan stayed behind a moment, sweeping the empty lot one last time. The tire marks from the van were still fresh in the gravel, heading east. He committed them to memory. Whoever was behind this had slipped away. For now, by the time he slid into his SUV, Valor already sat in the back, eyes locked forward, body rigid. The shepherd hadn't relaxed once since they'd gone underground. Ryan reached back, brushing the dog's ear. "You felt it too, didn't you? This isn't over." Valor blinked, then gave a short huff, as if to agree. Back at the precinct, the chaos had already begun. Parents crowded the lobby, desperate for answers about the new abductions reported across town. Detectives fielded calls. Maps were pinned with red markers. Phones rang nonstop. Ryan slipped through the noise, Maddie's rescue report tucked on his arm, but every nerve in his body screamed that he'd walked into the middle of something far larger than anyone realized. Captain Morales intercepted him outside the incident room. A woman in her 50s, hardened by years of leading men who didn't want to take orders from her. She had the kind of stare that cut through excuses. "You got the girl," she said, her voice even. "Barely." Her eyes flicked to Valor, whose scars were stark under the harsh fluorescent lights. "And the dog." Ryan swallowed. "He's fine. For now." Morales studied him a long moment. "Write it up." "But Callahan," she lowered her voice, "don't run this like it's just one predator. I don't like what I'm seeing." Neither did he. Later that night, Ryan sat at his desk, paperwork spread before him, but his eyes kept straying to Valor asleep under the desk. The dog twitched in restless dreams, paws flexing as if running. Ryan knew those scars carried more than flesh wounds. They carried memories. And if Valor could speak, Ryan was certain he'd tell him the same thing his gut already knew. This wasn't over. A knock on the desk pulled him back. Detective Elise Hartman leaned against the frame, holding 2 styrofoam cups of bad coffee. She was sharp, 10 years younger than Ryan, with a dry wit that cut through tension. "You look like hell," she said, sliding 1 cup toward him. "Thanks." He took a sip, grimacing. "Any word on the other kids?" Her expression darkened. 2 boys. Brothers. Ages 9 and 11. Vanished walking home from baseball practice. Same description as the one you saw. Ryan's jaw tightened. White panel van. No plates. "Yeah." She dropped the file on his desk. Photos of the boys stared up at him. Gap-toothed smiles. Uniforms still dusty from the game. Parents are a wreck. Valor stirred, sensing the weight in Ryan's chest. He pushed his head against Ryan's knee. Ryan set the coffee down, flipping open the file. Maddie said something before we got her out. She claimed they'd told her she wasn't the only one. That more kids would be brought here. Hartman frowned. So this wasn't random. No, Ryan shook his head. This site was prepared. It was waiting. The room felt colder. By dawn, Ryan was back at construction site with Valor. The others had cleared out, leaving only yellow tape fluttering in the morning breeze. The sun cast long shadows across the skeletal beams, making the place feel even more haunted. "Search," Ryan commanded softly. Valor lowered his nose, weaving through rubble, tail straight. He moved with intent, not distracted, not hurried. When he stopped at a rusted metal barrel, Ryan's stomach dropped. Inside were scraps of children's belongings. Plastic bracelets, a torn jacket sleeve, a baseball cap smeared with dirt. Ryan bagged each item, his chest heavy. This wasn't just a hideout. It was a holding ground. As he zipped the last evidence bag, Valor barked sharply, pawing at a section of collapsed flooring. Ryan crouched, pulling debris aside. Beneath the boards, carved faintly into concrete, were numbers. For digits, 1963. Ryan froze. What the hell? It wasn't a date that fit anything recent. Not a child's doodle. Someone had left it deliberately. Before he could think further, his phone buzzed. Hartman's voice crackled on the line. We've got movement. Another call just came in. Someone spotted a van matching the description heading toward the riverfront warehouses. Ryan's pulse spiked. He looked at Valor, who was already on his feet, ears pricked, ready, on our way. The warehouses by the river were relics of another era. Brick giants with shattered windows and rusting doors, long abandoned since the factories shut down. Now they were a graveyard of empty crates and forgotten machines. A perfect place to disappear. Ryan pulled up 2 blocks away, cutting the engine. He didn't like rushing blind into traps. He let Valor out first, clipping the leash but giving enough slack for the shepherd to lead. They moved quietly, boots crunching on broken glass, air heavy with the scent of oil and decay. Inside the first warehouse, shafts of morning light cut through holes of roof, illuminating dust motes like falling ash. Valor stiffened near a stack of crates, nose twitching. Ryan crouched beside him, listening. At first, nothing. Then, a faint clink of metal, followed by a hushed whisper. They weren't alone. Ryan crept forward, pistol raised. He signaled Valor to circle left, silent as shadow. The dog disappeared into the gloom. Seconds later, a scream echoed, a man's voice, startled and angry. Valor had flushed him out. Ryan swung around the crates just as the suspect stumbled into view, a burly man in a torn jacket, reaching for something in his waistband. Police, don't move. Ryan barked. The man froze, then bolted toward the side door. Valor lunged, hitting him square in the ribs, dragging him down with terrifying force. The gun clattered from the man's grip. Ryan was on him in seconds, cuffs snapping shut while the suspect cursed. You don't understand, the man spat, struggling. You can't stop it. You can't stop any of it. Ryan's grip tightened. Stop what? But the man only laughed, a hollow, broken sound. Behind them, Valor barked at another crate, his nose digging furiously. Ryan yanked the suspect to his feet and shoved him against the beam. He crossed the floor to where Valor clawed at the wood. With effort, he pried the lid loose. Inside his worst fear, a child's blanket, tiny shoes, and beneath them, duct tape, rope, syringes. Ryan felt bile rise in his throat. This wasn't just kidnapping. This was industrial, prepared, systematic. The suspect laughed again, even as Ryan slammed him harder against the beam. You're too late, detective. You'll always be too late. Ryan's blood pounded in his ears. Valor growled low, lips curled, as if he understood every vile word. And in that moment, Ryan knew Maddie's rescue was only the beginning. They hadn't saved one child. They'd stumbled into a machine built to take many. The real war had just begun. Ryan had been on the job long enough to know when someone was bluffing. The man cuffed to the steel beam inside the warehouse wasn't bluffing. His eyes burned with a kind of manic certainty, like someone who believed the storm had already broken and there was nothing left to fear. You don't get it, detective, the suspect hissed. His voice was rough, scarred by cigarettes and something darker. You can throw me in a cell, but it won't matter. They'll just keep coming. Ryan leaned in close, jaw tight. Who's they? The man only smiled, teeth yellowed. Ask the dog. He seems to know where to look. Valor growled, low and guttural, his scarred muzzle inches from the man's face. Ryan pulled him back gently, hand gripping the harness. He didn't want this guy shredded before they had answers. Detective Hartman entered with 2 uniforms in tow. She took one look at the crate of evidence, the blanket, the syringes, the tiny shoes, and her face paled. Jesus, Ryan, she whispered. This isn't just a stash. This is a kit. Ryan nodded grimly. Which means Maddie wasn't the first, and she won't be the last. They hauled the suspect out, kicking and cursing. into the early morning sun. Ryan stayed behind a moment longer, Valor pressed against his leg. He stared at the warehouse, its broken windows staring back like hollow eyes. Something about the place gnawed at him, like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Then he saw it, spray painted in faded red on one of the far walls. A circle. Inside it, a crude drawing of a dog. The paint was old, chipped, but unmistakable. Ryan's chest tightened. This wasn't random graffiti. It was a marker. Back at the precinct, the suspect clammed up the moment he hit the interrogation room. Lawyers appeared out of thin air, too polished for a low-level criminal. Ryan watched from the other side of the glass, fists clenched. Whoever was backing this man had reach. Power. Enough to choke the case before it started. Hartman stood beside him, arms crossed. You think he's just a pawn? Ryan nodded. No way he's running this. But he's connected. Valor found him too fast for it to be coincidence. As if on cue, Valor barked once, sharp, from where he lay in the corner of the observation room. Ryan glanced down. The shepherd's eyes were locked on the glass, on the suspect inside, unblinking. Ryan crouched beside him, lowering his voice. What do you see, boy? Valor didn't move, didn't waver. He just stared, ears forward, body rigid. For all Ryan's years in law enforcement, nothing chilled him like the certainty in that dog's gaze. Later that evening, Ryan drove back through Cedar Falls with Valor riding shotgun. The streets looked deceptively normal. Families eating at diners. Kids skateboarding past corner stores, neon signs flickering to life. But he couldn't shake the image of that crate, those tiny shoes, and the suspect's laugh. His phone buzzed. Captain Morales. Callahan. We traced a call from the suspect's burner. It pinged near the old rail yard on the south side. You and Valor are closest. Ryan turned the wheel without hesitation. On it, the rail yard was a graveyard of steel, miles of rusted tracks, boxcars left to rot, weeds pushing through the gravel. Ryan parked on the edge, cutting the headlights. Valor leapt down, nose immediately to the ground, ears twitching. They moved silently between boxcars. Ryan's flashlight kept low. Every creak of metal, every gust of wind, set his nerves on edge. Then Valor froze. His body stiffened, tail straight, nose locked on a single boxcar at the far end. Ryan approached cautiously, gun drawn. The door was half open, shadows spilling out. He slipped inside, beam cutting through the dark. The smell hit first, sweat, mildew, and something else he couldn't place. Then he saw it. Cots. 5 of them, lined up neatly, each with a blanket, a water bottle, and a stuffed toy. Empty now, but ready. Ryan's stomach churned. Valor pawed at the corner, claws scraping wood. Ryan lifted a loose board, revealing a stack of documents wrapped in plastic. He tore it open. Inside were photos. Children, dozens of them, some circled in red marker. Addresses scrawled in the margins. And in the middle of the pile, one photo made his blood run cold. Maddie Whitmore. Ryan's breath caught. They'd had her marked. Planned. This wasn't random at all. A noise behind him snapped his head up. Valor barked, lunging toward the door. A figure bolted into the night. Ryan sprinted after him, Valor at his side. They tore across the gravel, boots and paws pounding in rhythm. The suspect glanced back once, then vanished between 2 rusted cars. Ryan pushed harder, lungs burning. Valor surged ahead, launching with terrifying precision. The man went down hard, screaming as teeth sank into his arm. Ryan caught up, cuffing him with practiced efficiency. "Who are you working for?" he demanded, yanking the man to his feet. The suspect spat blood, eyes wild. "You don't want to know." Ryan slammed him against the boxcar. "Try me." But before the man could speak again, headlights flared at the edge of the yard. A black SUV screeched to a halt. 2 masked men jumped out, weapons drawn. Gunfire erupted, sparks flying as bullets pinged off steel. Ryan dug behind cover, dragging the suspect with him. Valor barked furiously, ears flat against the skull. The shepherd stayed low but never wavered, his gaze locked on the attackers. "Stay with me?" Ryan shouted, returning fire. The masked men advanced with precision, covering each other's moves. These weren't random thugs. This was trained, organized. Ryan fired again, forcing them to duck behind a car. In the chaos, the suspect he'd cuffed twisted, trying to crawl away. Valor was on him instantly, teeth clamped on his jacket, dragging him back like he was nothing more than prey. The gunfire paused. Then the SUV roared back to life, tires screeching as it peeled away into the night. The masked men vanished with it, leaving only silence and the faint echo of engines. Ryan stood slowly, chest heaving, pistol still raised. He looked down at the suspect, now pale and shaking, Valor's teeth still gripping his sleeve. "You just ran out protection," Ryan said coldly. The man's eyes darted around, desperate, terrified. "They'll kill me," he rasped. Ryan holstered his weapon, signaling Valor to release. The shepherd obeyed, though his growl lingered like thunder. "Then talk before they do," Ryan said. Back at the precinct, Ryan dropped a file of photos on Captain Morales' desk. She flipped through them, her face hardening with every page. "This isn't just local," she said finally, voice low. "This is bigger. Interstate, maybe even national." Ryan leaned against the wall, Valor at his side. "They've got kids marked like targets. They're operating in our city like it's open season. And they're not afraid of law enforcement." Morales looked up, eyes blazing. "Then we make them afraid." Ryan glanced at Valor, whose scar seemed to glow under the harsh lights. The shepherd met his gaze steadily, as if reminding him they'd already walked through hell together. They could do it again. But in Ryan's gut, he knew this wasn't just about bravery or training. This was about speed, about finding the next child before the machine swallowed them whole. And somewhere in the city, he felt it, the faint heartbeat of time running out. Valor barked once, sharp and certain. The hunt was far from over. The precinct never slept after the rail yard raid. Phones rang. Maps crowded with pushpins covered the walls, and the steady hum of printers spat out warrants and subpoenas. But none of it eased the gnawing in Ryan Callahan's gut. He sat at his desk with Valor curled beneath it, the shepherd's chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. The dog was exhausted but alert, every sound pulling his ears upright. Those scars across his shoulders caught the glow of the desk lamp, reminding Ryan of every fight the dog had already survived. Ryan pinched the bridge of his nose, staring at the stack of photos from the boxcar. Kids circled in red, addresses scribbled in the margins. Some of those addresses weren't even in Cedar Falls. They stretched into Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, a web sprawling across state lines. Hartman approached quietly, a coffee in each hand. She set one down in front of him and slid into the chair across. "You're not going to sleep, are you?" she asked. "Not while there are names on this list," Ryan muttered, tapping the file. "They're hunting kids like it's a damn grocery order." Hartman took a sip, eyes narrowing. "I put a request in with the feds. If this really crosses states, we're going to need more than just Cedar Falls PD." Ryan's jaw tightened. By the time Washington moves, another kid's gone. Valor stirred, pushing his nose against Ryan's leg as if to anchor him. Ryan rubbed his head. "We can't wait. We have to move now." Later that afternoon, the suspect from the rail yard finally cracked. Whether it was the silence of the holding cell or the memory of masked men abandoning him, he broke down under interrogation. "They've got another drop tonight," he whispered, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Old mill outside town. They move the kids through there before they disappear." Ryan leaned forward across the table. "What time?" "After dark." "Who's running it?" The man shook his head violently. I don't know. They keep us blind. One mistake, you vanish." Ryan slammed his palms on the table, making the suspect flinch. "Then where are they taking them?" The man's voice dropped to a rasp. "Somewhere east. Always east." The sun dipped behind the trees as Ryan and Valor approached the mill. It stood like a skeleton on the edge of town, rust eating away its corrugated metal skin. The broken windows gaped like teeth. Even from the road, the place stank of oil and mold. Hartman's voice crackled through Ryan's earpiece. "We got unit stage 3 blocks away. Your point with Valor." Ryan clipped the leash to the harness, crouched low. "You ready, boy?" Valor's ears pricked. His body vibrated with anticipation. They moved quietly across the gravel, shadows stretching long in the dying light. At the main door, Ryan paused, listening. Faint voices drifted out, men talking low, a laugh here, the scrape of metal. He motioned Valor forward. The dog lowered his nose, weaving along the ground until he stopped at a crack under the door. He growled, deep and certain. Ryan gave the signal. 2 uniforms flanked the side, weapons drawn. With one hard kick, the door burst open. Chaos erupted. Inside, for men spun in shock. 2 reached for weapons. Valor launched like a missile, slamming into the closest one, dragging him to the ground in a tangle of limbs. Ryan moved fast, covering left, firing a warning shot that sent another man diving for cover. Police, down on the ground. One bolted toward the back door. Ryan gave chase, boots pounding across the oil-stained floor. He tackled the man just as he reached the exit, wrenching his arm behind his back. Behind him, Valor snarled, pinning his suspect to concrete, teeth bared inches from his throat. The man screamed, tossing the gun aside. Within minutes, the rest were subdued, cuffed, dragged out into the night. But Ryan's focus wasn't on them. It was on the sound that followed, the faint whimper coming from deeper in the mill. "Maddie," he whispered instinctively, though he knew it couldn't be her. Valor was already pulling toward the noise, tail stiff. Ryan followed, flashlight beams sweeping across rusted machinery until it landed on a locked storage room. He pressed an ear to the door. Soft crying leaked through. "Get me bolt cutters," he barked to the nearest officer. Seconds later, the lock snapped. The door creaked open. Inside were 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, huddled together on a filthy mattress. Their faces were streaked with dirt, eyes wide with terror. "It's okay," Ryan said softly, lowering his weapon. "You're safe now." Valor padded forward slowly, head low, tail wagging gently. The girl reached out, tiny fingers brushing his fur. "Doggy," she whispered, just like Maddie had. Ryan swallowed hard, throat tight. He holstered his gun and knelt. "We're taking you home." The mill raid made the evening news within the hour. Cameras swarmed. Headlines screamed about child trafficking rings and hero police rescues. But Ryan stood in the shadows, watching from the edge of the crowd. He didn't feel like a hero, not when he knew the real operators were still out there, pulling strings. Hartman joined him, her expression as grim as his. "We saved 3. But how many more?" Ryan glanced at Valor, who stood tall despite the fresh cut along his flank from the scuffle. "He won't stop until it's done," Ryan said quietly. Neither would he. Back at his apartment that night, Ryan sat on the couch with Valor stretched out at his feet. The shepherd's breathing was steady, eyes half closed, but Ryan could feel the tension still humming in him. Ryan rubbed his scars gently. "You carried us through again, didn't you?" Valor huffed, resting his head on Ryan's boot. The room was silent except for the hum of the fridge and the faint buzz of a streetlight outside. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, exhaustion pulling at him. He thought about Maddie's face, the other kids' whispers, the suspect's words. Always east. Wherever east was, it was where this trail led. The next morning, Ryan's phone buzzed before dawn. It was Captain Morales. "Callahan, get dressed. We've got a problem." Ryan rubbed his face, pulling on his jacket. Val was already at the door, tail wagging, body tense like he knew duty called. At the precinct, Morales laid out. The men arrested at the mill had been bailed out overnight. Anonymous money. No names. No trail. Ryan's hands curled into fists. "They're untouchable." "Not untouchable," Morales corrected. Eyes sharp. "Just hidden. But every machine has gears. Find the next one and pull." Ryan nodded slowly. He looked down at Valor, whose gaze burned steady and unflinching. "We'll find them," Ryan said, "before they find the next kid." That evening, Ryan drove through quiet streets of Cedar Falls, Valor's head out the window, ears catching the wind. Families gathered for dinner. Porch lights flickered on. Children played tag in backyards. On the surface, life looked normal, but Ryan knew better. Somewhere out there, Someone was already planning the next abduction. Valor turned suddenly, nose pressed to the glass, growling low. Ryan followed his gaze. A white van sat parked 2 blocks away, engine off, lights dark. Ryan slowed the SUV, pulse spiking. He reached for the radio, eyes locked on the van. "Dispatch!" This is Callahan. "I may have eyes on our ghost." Valor barked once, sharp and certain. The hunt wasn't over. It was only getting closer. Ryan Callahan had spent 15 years chasing criminals through alleys, suburb, and backwoods trails, but nothing had burrowed under his skin like this case. The mill raid should have felt like a win. They'd pulled 3 kids out of hell and put cuffs on the monsters holding them. But it didn't. Not when money appeared overnight to buy those men back into the world. Not when Valor had nearly torn himself apart fighting to protect children who were still too afraid to speak above a whisper. And not when that white van kept showing up. For 2 nights in a row, it appeared like a ghost. Parked near schools, outside grocery stores, along routes where parents walked their kids home. Each time Ryan rolled up with Valor in the SUV, the van slipped away before they could pin it down. No plates, tinted windows, always vanishing into side streets like smoke through fingers. By the 3rd night, Ryan wasn't waiting anymore. He parked his SUV in an alley off Lincoln Avenue. Lights off, Valor crouched low in the back seat. The shepherd's nose twitched, his body vibrating with tension. "Easy, boy," Ryan whispered, one hand on the dog's harness. "We gotta be patient." Just after 9, headlights swept the block. The white van rolled past, slow and deliberate, as if tasting the street. Ryan waited until it turned the corner before sliding into gear, following at a distance. The van meandered through neighborhoods, pausing near playgrounds, circling blocks where children's bikes leaned against fences. Ryan's grip on the wheel tightened with every turn. Whoever was behind that glass wasn't lost. They were hunting. Valor gave a sharp bark, startling Ryan into action. He hit the siren once, just enough to light up the street, and floored it. The van gunned forward instantly, engine roaring. Tires screeched as it barreled through a stop sign, narrowly missing a sedan. Ryan stuck close, heart hammering, Valor barking furiously with every swerve. "Dispatch!" This is Detective Callahan. "Pursuit in progress. Eastbound on Mill Road, white panel van, no plates. Suspect is fleeing at high speed." The van cut through an industrial district, weaving between warehouses, finally skidding to a stop near a half-collapsed loading dock. 2 men jumped out, sprinting into the shadows. Ryan barely had time to slam the SUV into park. "Valor, take him." The shepherd exploded forward, his body a blur of muscle and scar tissue. He hit the first suspect mid-stride, dragging him down hard. Ryan sprinted after the second, lungs burning, boots pounding against concrete. He tackled the man just before he reached the dock, cuffing him while the suspect spit curses. When Ryan hauled them both back under the flickering streetlight, Valor had the first pin flat on the ground, teeth bared. Ryan yanked the second upright. "You think kids are property?" Ryan growled. "You think you can keep doing this under my nose?" The man sneered through split lips. "You don't even know who you're fighting." Ryan shoved him against the hood of the van. "Then educate me." But the only answer was silence, and the faint whimper from inside the van. Ryan froze. He wrenched the back doors open, flashlights slicing through the dark. A girl, maybe 6 years old, sat curled inside, wrists bound with tape. Her eyes were wide, face streaked with dirt. "It's okay," Ryan said softly, lowering his gun. "You're safe now." Valor jumped in beside her, tail wagging gently, licking her hand until she reached out with trembling fingers. Ryan swallowed hard. They'd save one more. But how many had already been lost? Back at the precinct, the girl was wrapped in blankets, medics checking her vitals. She whispered her name, Emily. She'd been gone for 2 days. Her parents were on their way, voices cracking over the phone as they begged officers to keep her safe. Hartman paced beside Ryan, staring through the glass at the suspects in holding. Same story as before. Lawyers already circling. They'll walk unless we find something bigger. Ryan rubbed his face, exhaustion weighing him down. Then we find it. Valor lay at his feet, eyes closed, but Ryan knew he wasn't sleeping. The shepherd's body was still tense, ears flicking with every sound. Captain Morales stormed in, slamming a folder onto the table. Enough waiting. If they've got lawyers and money, we take it federal. The FBI is sending an agent tomorrow morning. Ryan's chest tightened. He hated handing his cases off, but he knew Morales was right. Fine, but until then, Valor, and I keep digging. That night, Ryan drove aimlessly through Cedar Falls, Valor in the passenger seat this time, head pressed against a window. The city looked deceptively peaceful. Kids chasing fireflies, diners buzzing with late-night chatter, the smell of barbecue drifting from porches. But Ryan couldn't stop picturing Emily's face, the duct tape on her wrists, the terror in her eyes. He pulled over at a park where the swing swayed in the breeze. Valor jumped out, stretching his legs, nose work in the air. Ryan followed, hands in his pockets. "Tell me what I'm missing, boy," he murmured. Valor paused near the edge of the playground, nose pressed to the dirt. Then he barked once, digging furiously until his paw hit something solid. Ryan knelt, brushing away soil. A shard of wood, burned, blackened, carved with the same crude circle and dog symbol he'd seen at the warehouse. Ryan's heart dropped. They were marking territory. By morning, the FBI had arrived. Special Agent Claire Donovan was sharp, composed, every inch the Fed Ryan expected. She flipped through the files, eyes narrow at the photos, the maps, the children's names. "This isn't local," she said finally. "It's a pipeline. Kids are moved from city to city, each stop just a holding ground before they're transferred again. And if you're seeing markers," she tapped the symbol photo, "that means they're organized. Communication without words." Ryan leaned forward. "So, how do we break it?" "Find the hub," Donovan replied. "Every pipeline has one. The place where orders come down." Ryan looked at Valor, who sat rigid at his side, scars gleaming under the fluorescent light. "Then that's where we start." The break came sooner than expected. A tip from an informant pointed them to a storage facility on the outskirts of town. Dozens of units, rented under false names, cash only. Ryan and Valor arrived first, waiting for backup. The place was quiet. Too quiet, the rows of metal doors stretching like a maze. Valor froze halfway down the lane, ears pricked, body trembling with intensity. He sniffed once, twice, then lunged toward a unit halfway down. Ryan's stomach turned as he pressed his ear to the door. Faint shuffling inside. A muffled cough. He signaled the team. Bolt cutters snapped. The door rattled up. Inside were 5 children. Alive. Bound. Terrified. Valor rushed forward, whining softly as the kids shrank back in fear. He lowered himself to ground, tail wagging, until one by one, they reached out tentative hands. Ryan's chest constricted, throat burning. They cut the kids free, medics rushing in, blankets wrapping small shoulders. Ryan stood back, watching as Valor let the youngest bury her face in his fur. For one moment, amidst the chaos, Ryan felt hope. But then he spotted it. In the corner of the unit, taped to the wall. A map, lines drawn eastward, cities circled. Cedar Falls was just one among dozens. Ryan ripped it down, fury boiling. "They're moving faster than we are." Hartman's voice cracked behind him. "Ryan, look." She held up a Polaroid from a box on the floor. A boy, maybe 10, staring blankly at the camera. And on the back, scrawled in black marker, was tomorrow's date. Ryan's blood ran cold. They weren't stopping. Not unless he and Valor got to the hub first. Valor barked once, sharp and decisive. His gaze locked on Ryan. The shepherd was ready. And Ryan knew this was no longer just about rescue. It was about dismantling the entire machine before another child vanished. Ryan Callahan barely slept after the raid on the storage facility. The image of those 5 children huddled together, their small wrists bound with duct tape, replayed in his head like a broken film reel. But it wasn't just the kids. It was the map taped to the wall, with Cedar Falls marked like just another waypoint. And it was a Polaroid of a boy with tomorrow's date scrawled on the back. Every instinct told him the clock was running out. By dawn, Ryan was back at the precinct. The command center buzzed with FBI agents, local officers, and detectives, all bent over maps and laptops. Screens displayed traffic cams, van sightings, storage rentals. The room hummed with urgency, but Ryan's focus never wavered from valor. The shepherd stood in the middle of the chaos, alert and calm, scars running like road maps across his body. He wasn't restless, wasn't distracted. He was ready. Ryan crouched, scratching under his collar. This is it, partner. We find the hub, we shut it down. Captain Morales briefed the room. The Polaroid points to a transfer happening tonight. Our intel says the hub is located in an abandoned meatpacking plant east of the river. This is where the kids are funneled before being moved across state lines. If we're right, this is our one shot. Ryan straightened. Then we don't miss. The plant loomed against the evening sky, a fortress of rusted steel and broken windows. The air reeked of ammonia and old decay, clinging to the skin like grease. Federal agents and local SWAT units surrounded the perimeter, weapons drawn. Ryan and Valor stood at the front, poised at the main entrance. Hartman adjusted her vest beside him. You ready for this? Ryan glanced at Valor, whose gaze burned steady and unflinching. Yeah, we're ready. The signal came. Doors crashed open. Boots thundered against concrete, shouts echoing through the cavernous halls. Ryan and Valor pushed inside, flashlight beams cutting through darkness. The place was a maze of conveyor belts, hooks swaying from rusted chains, crates stacked high like barricades. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of mildew and something metallic. Then they heard it, a child's cry. Valor bolted, Ryan on his heels. They tore through a corridor and into a wide chamber. Cages, 3 of them, welded from steel bars, each holding terrified children. Ryan's chest seized. Jesus! Men shouted from the shadows. Gunfire erupted, sparks spraying off metal. Ryan dug behind a crate, returning fire. Valor lunged low, darting between cover, snarling. Cover me! Ryan yelled, sprinting forward. He cut the lock on the first cage, dragging 2 children out. Valor positioned himself like a wall, barking ferociously, teeth flashing in the dim light. More men rushed in, faces hidden by masks. They weren't amateurs, tight formations, coordinated movements. One leveled a rifle at Ryan. Before the trigger could pull, Valor launched like a missile. He hit the man square in the chest, the gun clattering away as they slammed into the ground. Ryan fired at another, dropping him with precision. Chaos filled the plant. Shouts, screams, the clash of metal, and the echo of gunfire. But in the center of it all, Valor never wavered. He moved like a shadow, taking down one assailant, then another, his scarred body a blur of loyalty and fury. Ryan reached the last cage, heart pounding as he cut the lock. Inside, he found him, the boy from the Polaroid, 10 years old, pale, trembling but alive. Ryan pulled him out, pressing him into Hartman's arms as she rushed him toward safety. But the fight wasn't over. From the far end of the chamber, a man emerged, taller than the others, his presence colder, more commanding. He held a pistol steady, aimed directly at Ryan. You should have stayed out of this, detective, the man said, his voice calm, chilling. You can't stop what's already in motion. Ryan's finger twitched on the trigger, but before he could fire, the man squeezed off a shot. The sound cracked like thunder. Ryan braced for impact, then realized the bullet hadn't hit him. Valor staggered instead, a crimson bloom spreading across his side. No! Ryan's scream ripped through the chaos. The shepherd didn't fall. Not immediately. He bared his teeth, snarling, and launched himself at the gunman. The force of his attack knocked the weapon free, sending both of them crashing into a steel beam. Ryan fired once, twice. The man went down hard, motionless. Valor collapsed beside him. Ryan dropped his knees, hands pressing against the wound. Stay with me, boy. Stay with me. The shepherd's breathing was ragged, shallow, but his eyes locked on Ryan's. Not afraid, not panicked, just steady, loyal as always. Medics rushed in, dragging the children out, securing the scene. But Ryan couldn't move. His hands shook as he whispered, You're not done. You hear me? You don't quit on me now. Hours later, the plant was swarming with agents. The trafficking ring was dismantled, at least in Cedar Falls. Children were reunited with parents. Officers loaded crates of evidence into trucks, and headlines screamed of heroic raid ends child trafficking operation. But Ryan wasn't at the press conference. He sat in the veterinary trauma unit downtown, Valor stretched out on a stainless steel table, IVs running into his veins. The room smelled of antiseptic and fear. Hartman stood at the doorway. He's strong, Ryan. Stronger than most men I know. If anyone makes it through this, it's him. Ryan rubbed the dog's paw gently, the scars under his fingers rough like calluses. He's not just a dog, he said quietly. He's the reason kids are going home tonight. Valor stirred, opening his eyes weakly. He gave a faint huff, tail tapping once against the table. Ryan smiled through the tears stinging his eyes. That's right, buddy. You did it. You saved them. The following week, Cedar Falls held a ceremony in the town square. Families gathered, children sat on their parents' shoulders, and banners read, "Thank you, Valor." Ryan stood beside Captain Morales as the mayor spoke of courage, loyalty, and sacrifice. Valor wore a new harness, his wounds still healing, but his spirit unbroken. When Ryan gave the signal, the shepherd walked forward, ears perked, chest proud. The crowd erupted into cheers. Children rushed forward to touch him, to hug him, to bury their faces in his fur. Maddie was among them, clutching Valor tightly. Emily, too, smiling through tears. Ryan watched, pride swelling in his chest. This was what they fought for. This was why Valor had risked everything. When it was Ryan's turn to speak, he stepped up to the microphone, his voice carrying across the square. This city owes its safety tonight not to me, not a badge I wear, but to the partner standing beside me. Valor isn't just a K9. He's a guardian, a hero who never asked for thanks, only to do his duty. He fought for your children, for mine, for all of us, and he'll keep fighting, scars and all. He glanced down at Valor, who stood tall despite the limp in his gait. The shepherd barked once, and the crowd cheered louder, tears glistening in countless eyes. Ryan's throat tightened. Remember this night. Remember that it takes all of us, parents, neighbors, officers, and yes, even dogs, to keep our children safe. Evil hides in shadows, but it can't survive when we shine a light together. The applause rolled like thunder. Later, as the square emptied and the night grew quiet, Ryan sat on the steps of City Hall with Valor beside him. The dog rested his head on Ryan's knee, sighing contentedly. "You did it, partner," Ryan whispered. "You gave them hope." Valor closed his eyes, tail thumping softly. For the first time in weeks, Ryan let himself breathe. They'd broken the pipeline. They'd saved lives. The war wasn't over. Not everywhere. But tonight, at least in Cedar Falls, the children slept safely. And a scarred German shepherd lay at peace, knowing the city saw him for what he truly was. A silent hero who never once backed down. Sparkles, thank you for following this story. Valor, scars, and bravery remind us that heroes don't always look the way we expect. Speech balloon question for you, the audience. If you had a partner like Valor by your side, loyal, fearless, willing to fight through fire for you, what would you call him?